John, thanks for joining us today. Where are you calling in from?
Sacramento, California.
All right, which is your market? So we got that out of the way, which is great. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about your company, the name, kind of who you focus on, size, longevity. Give us a snapshot of who you are.
Okay, sure. So we're Tyner Property Management. It's a family name because it's a family business. My father started it in 1976, so we're coming up on 50 years here in about 2 years. A long time in business, three generations. My daughter's nearly 40, and she's working in the company now. And when we started, we had 40 doors when I came to help my dad, and now we're at 1,250 doors, growing rather rapidly, signing about 250 new accounts a year. And then 90% single family homes and about 10% duplexes, no multifamily above that. So we're pretty narrow in our focus. And they're kind of median, just below median price and up. I don't take a lot of properties that are in the rougher neighborhoods because our screening criteria won't allow me to place tenants, and I just don't want to make that compromise. And part of that is why we have probably our most distinguishing characteristic is that we're doing less than one eviction a year with 1,250 doors now. So our eviction rate, 99.9% of our tenants don't get evicted. Our screening process is really good. And that's kind of the one thing that we lead with when we're talking to a new customer, potential new customer, I should say.
That's great. Okay, so 1,250 units now. What did you say you were at when you came into the business? You were at 40?
40. Yeah.
40.
My dad was a realtor and he had too many rentals to take care of himself. He needed me to
Okay.
come help him.
So this was a side hustle before it was a business, is what I'm hearing when you got
Yeah, yeah.
involved.
When I started, I was the handyman and everything. That my mom and dad and
Yeah.
I sat in a little 10 by 10 office, and if somebody called and they wanted us to, they'd ask if they could talk to another one. We'd say, "Sure, let me transfer the phone," and we'd hand the phone to the next person in the office. It was funny. It was so small. It was a little bit comical.
I love that. Well, that's funny. When you did that, the term side hustle probably wasn't even invented yet, but it's what you were doing, And
Yeah.
yeah, it was auxiliary to the main business, which is great, which is how a lot of good things happen, by demand. So that's fantastic. So I've never been to Sacramento. I've been all over California. I know it's a capital city. Kind of what do the demographics look like? Who's are people investing in Sacramento, or are these just a lot of family properties that are accidentally landlording?
We have a lot of default or Plan B landlords that when the market, particularly in 2022, when the interest rates went to 7%, a lot of our customers now are people who couldn't sell, so they're deciding to rent and hold their properties until things change. We're signing them up one at a time. Not big investors. They're usually people who have one or two rentals. I think my average has 2.1 or something properties. So
Right.
it's a lot of small landlords, moms and pops kind of people.
Sounds like a good business. Congratulations. All right, so I want to cover a few things today. I know I met you about a year ago, and it's exciting to kind of already see the momentum you had when I met you, and so that's what I want to focus on. So, looked up what you did, talked to you about it, see your lead flow. Obviously, we've worked with you, so we've kind of seen the momentum you have. And not to flatter you too much, John, but you're kind of a big deal out there in California. You got a lot of inflow deal flow, as they would say. When I look you up, you're kind of everywhere. And I'm sure some of that has to do with the longevity of your business, which, that can never be underestimated, in a Google environment. But you're doing some other things. You're doing some content, some advertising. So walk us through what you've been doing to get the attention you've got and why is the phone ringing is basically the question.
Sure. Sure. Well, it helps to just have the volume because when you have 1,200 properties, you have 40 or 50 vacant at all the time. So that's driving a lot of people to your website. That helps. You can't overcome that when you have 100 properties. But far beyond that, we are doing a lot of content now. And this was key to us hiring a business development manager. I've been doing all the presentations myself for decades. I've done like 5,000 of them. And I was good at it. My close rate was very high. I had the luxury of having a really good office manager that could really run the operations really well for me. I think she's better at it than I am. I didn't need to watch over the business on a daily basis anymore. We had really good procedures and our operations were just working really well. And without that, you can't really grow very fast. But I had been driving the growth for the company for a long time, and I was signing, like I said, about 250 accounts a year for the last several years. But when you're doing that many, that's kind of all you can do. And I was exhausted, and I had lots of plans for more content for our website, and they weren't getting executed on because I was just too busy doing the other things. So, kind of skipping ahead to more currently. By the way, there's a side story I might want to share with you. I think I met Jennifer at one of the trade booths when I was in San Diego at the owner broker conference. And she tried to pitch me as I walked by. And a lot of times you're just trying to figure out how to get past the vendors. And she said, "Do you want to grow your business?" And I said, "Not any faster." She goes, "You got all the new business you want?" And I said, "Well, yeah, we're signing about 250 a year." And I thought that would just like get me off the hook with her, and it did for them. But then at the conference in Napa, I had forgotten that, and she walked up and reminded me, "You still signing 250 a year?" And I said, "Yeah." "You like doing it?" "Yeah." And then as I came into your group and I listened to some of that, I thought, this is foolish for me. I'm not getting done the other things that I want to do. So we worked with you to find and train a good business development manager. By the way, we found a fantastic one. And my goal at that time was, I just don't want you to lose what I've been doing. Like, just run with the ball and don't drop it. If you can keep the sign up rate similar to what I've done. And my thinking with that is that this would free me up to do content. And that's what I've done a lot of. I've started a radio show on one of the local news stations called Landlord Logic. And that's also a podcast. We do that it airs every Sunday morning. It usually generates calls. And the calls come in with so much credibility when they've heard you talk about property management, best practices, new laws. My thought is, give away the secret sauce. Tell the public how to manage properties well. And if they hear enough of it, pretty soon they go, "I don't want to learn all this. It's too much." And then they call us, and so they become a good lead. So that one was an important piece of what we've done to help grow, because in preparing for the radio show, I found that I've already kind of outlined a blog, and then I do the written blog, and then I would do a video blog, and all those are uploaded on the website. And then we share them on landlord group forums on Facebook and some of those things. And it just my goal in doing this was that if I could create enough content, instead of spending a pretty big AdWord budget every month, if I could create enough content to make the advertising costs go away and continue to generate the same number of leads that would produce 250 new accounts a year or more,
Mhm.
that would be a win-win, because that would pay for my business development manager and more. And bottom line is, that's worked for us very well. We've already cut our AdWord budget by $10,000 a month, and the lead flow is faster than it was a year ago.
That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. In addition to just how great it makes us feel that we were able to assist, but the logic there that you went through, that's hard won experience and knowledge that I think people reading this or watching this are going to want to hear. Do you mind me asking what, your kind of average AdWords budget has been over the last couple of years?
Well, we've run it from 5,000 a month up to about $10,000 a month. And
Yep.
then we also had a radio campaign, which turns out that was kind of smart, because it aired on the same place where we later ended up doing our Landlord Logic show. So it kind of softened the ground for that to be plowed through.
So that's great. So you were actually radio advertising before you had the radio show. It was
Yes.
a pure advertising play.
Yeah, and we did this block programming, and it's kind of interesting because one block program costs about the same as three 30-second ads for
Yeah,
like at a half hour. And so that got a lot more content out that way. The audiences are smaller on a weekend than they would have been during commute hours, during the business week. But it generates a really good call flow for us.
I believe it. Yeah, some of our most successful clients have been in radio, and everybody else thinks it's crazy and absurd, but it seems to still work. And I think the less people doing it drives down the cost, which is exciting.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so 5 to 10. So you were able to dial that a little bit back through content. So now you're moving more from a pay to play to more organic, which I'm also guessing makes you more of an authority, right? Because now people like the earned media or the attention media is basically increasing the credibility, right?
It does. The credibility is so different than someone finding you on Google with three other property managers and interviewing you all because you come in equal. if they've heard you on the radio talking about new laws and best practices, they feel like you are the local authority on this. And they
Yes.
come in and say they don't come in and say we're, questions to figure out if you're competent or not. They come in and say, what do I need to do in order to have you manage my property? It's a much easier sell.
I was say, yeah, I've experienced it myself. It catalyzes the sales process, just like you saw us in California, and then you said, okay, look at all those numbers, look at all that great free advice that I just got, and then we didn't really have to sell you on being credible. We just had to make sure it worked for you, right? And that it was a
Mm-hmm.
good
Yep.
fit. So. Love the authority angle of that. So one of the things on that, I really want to just hover on that for a minute because, I have a lot of these conversations. I know that works. I think that a lot of people have this like false belief that they can just go out and they can market and they can completely disconnect the idea of like, okay, I can just pay for an ad and then I can just have a sales process and I can convert, which is possible. But what I'm seeing is when you put yourself out there and you start doing authority marketing and the advertising is actually them getting to know you, you're
Mm-hmm.
actually making the sales process better and it starts becoming less segmented as like, there's one person doing this, there's one person doing that. And strategically, the whole thing comes together. It's just basically, we're going to go out there, we're going to educate, and then that's going to generate leads and that's going to make the sales process better. And if we're saying the same thing when they're a total stranger that we're saying in the sales process and that we're saying when we're serving them and there's basically continuity through the whole process, I feel like the whole machine just moves a lot faster. So you want to kind of share like how you would explain that to brethren or like a peer that you're sitting down with at a NARPM event and say, hey, this is why this works so well.
Well, we try to do what we do in all of our blogging and all of our radio shows, all content we're creating is really a giveaway. We're offering information rather than selling you on a product. And we have a much more laid back sales approach. In fact, it was kind of funny when we were going to hire BDM. You have your chart, and you kind of want to see people in that upper quadrant. I think with that they're a strong salesperson, and we ended up hiring somebody who was more in the order taker zone.
Yeah.
And Jennifer wisely said, I think that she's going to end up fitting in your business model better, even though she's not what we typically look for. And she's a little bit more laid back and informative in her process. And it's worked really well because then what they're hearing in the content when she comes in as a business development manager, they don't feel like they're getting slammed with a salesperson. Now they have someone else who kind of reflects what I did. So I know that's a little different than your model, but we knew we were creating it a little different in our case, and it's worked really well for us.
I love that you shared that, and we'll have to put the graphic up. You're absolutely right. I mean, step one is that recognizing the types of personalities is really important. And I remember her telling me that. I remember her chatting at the end of the day with me and saying, "Hey, for John, we're going to bring in somebody that's a little more order taker." And I said, "Well, that sounds right because he's just got to keep up with the leads, And it's a first world problem, for a term that we can use in business. We'd all be so lucky to have that many leads that all we got to do is really take the order and qualify. That person's almost like a gatekeeper. Let's make sure that we're bringing in the right people, we're setting the right expectations. And that's why I wanted to focus on how you're doing that because this is the preferred position to be in, is that everybody's coming to you and you just get to be selective and you get to make sure that you set the expectations. And that creates a great experience for both sides. That creates a great experience for the consumer or prospect because they know they're coming to somebody they want to work with. And it creates a great experience for the company as well because you're basically, attracting your tribe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your tribe is your vibe is something I heard from somebody say, which is really great. So let me talk about the vibe a little bit. As you're out there on your content, getting to know you. Laid back is a great word. I mean, you're in California, and I'm an East Coast guy, you're a West Coast guy. So I'm probably, like in general, like we just probably fit the cliches a little bit. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but laid back is something that I've always experienced with you, and you're letting the good things come to you. And so, how does that attitude or how does that culture fit into the content when you're teaching, when you're talking to your clients? Is that something you've been cognizant of, or is that just something that you're hearing from me for the first time?
Well, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think it's part of our natural disposition. That's kind of where I come from. And then
Yep.
I've hired a team around me that's similar. This is a little deviation from what we're talking about, but the office culture has been really, really important to me. And our new business development manager and I were just talking about this yesterday. And she says, I think that's really key to the whole company's vibe and success is that very nature of being family oriented, caring about people. Nobody gets, run over by somebody with an agenda. There's a real good collaboration. I had a poison employee, about 10 years ago. It was toxic, and she was always in drama with somebody. And eventually, we parted ways, and the office felt so good afterwards. Everybody noticed it, and I became very protective of having a really good culture in the company where if there's a problem, nobody's throwing somebody else under the bus. When whoever gets the call, they take care of the problem. And so the teamwork and the collaborative efforts between my team is really good. And it's having someone with an emotional quotient that's low, that gets fired up and yells, and we just don't tolerate it. If I get a new employee and they have those traits, we don't keep them. So we've become very protective of that culture. But that office culture then has kind of come into everything we do, our marketing and our content that we're doing. So if you watch my videos, they're really just kind of a laid back. This is what you need to know about this situation, and it works well for us. And then Brandy comes back in with the same kind of attitude when she does her presentations, and she's saying, "This is what you need to know about the company." So the consistency has been really important for us. I think it's a key to our success. I didn't want people to be attracted to us for one thing, and then have the business development manager be something that was completely different. I think they'd have felt almost like bait and switched, and so it's worked out good.
Thanks for sharing that. I totally agree. I think with the amplification comes that power and that freedom to just basically say, we're a lighthouse, not a tugboat, you know?
Mhm.
Like we're just gonna stand here and we're gonna be very clear about if this is the right harbor for you, you come on in, you know, and if you're not, well, we're also useful because we'll just send you on to the next harbor and we'll keep you away from the rocks. And I think that it takes a certain amount of reach and authority to be able to do that and to still hit numbers that are keeping you afloat, you know?
Mhm.
And it is like just I love the rocket analogy when I mean, you came in, it was 40 doors. But when you're starting a business, it's like 90% of the fuel on the rocket ship, it takes just to get out of the atmosphere. And then you just basically coast afterwards.
Yeah.
And that's what's exciting is like seeing the momentum you have. I'm not saying you're coasting, but like now you have the ability to basically be more choosy and to just
Right.
basically amplify what you do and be a
Yeah, we
lighthouse.
took, when I first came to help my dad, we were taking any new door we could sign up, and we had 40 accounts, and we were doing 10 evictions a year. Now we have 1,200, and we're doing one a year. So, we had a learning curve ourselves, and but it's kind of like I like the analogy of the jar of bugs. Once the jar is half full, it's going to fill up really fast. With their multiplying, and that's what it's been like in the company. Getting to that first 100 doors was so hard. I remember being so happy when we got to 100 doors,
Hmm.
and then it took about a third that long to get to 200 doors. And then the market's given and taken three major market cycles since I've been doing this for
Yeah.
35 years. And there's atrophy seasons and there's growth seasons. We've been in a growth season now for quite a while. But that's just you have to learn that when the sun shines, you want to make that hay fast. So excuse me, I got a frog here. This time when the market cycle got ready, we were ready for it. I had seen this happen a couple of times. So our website was optimized for it. Our responses are really important too. So when we get a lead, they immediately get some really good information. They're getting a short 3-minute video that's really designed to show them what our company's about and what we're like, and give them a preliminary interest that'll cause them to go ahead and want to schedule the presentation. So I'm real big on getting in front of them as soon as we can, as long as they're a qualified lead. So our BDM's main job when we get a lead call is this an account we're probably going to want? Once she figures that out, if we can get in front of them, our close rates running 40 to 55%. So you can't hardly do better than that because they don't all end up using property management anyway. Sometimes they sell or other things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. All right. So I do want to talk about the journey of bringing on full-time business development. But before I do that, just, because again, I think I've got like the listener's ear in my head, and they're just like, okay, so all this energy, all this attraction that we're creating, what are you actually doing? Do you mind just walking me through the mediums that you're on? You said if you go to the website, you can see videos, there's radio. Do you mind just kind of walking me through all the things that you're focused on, either
Sure.
previously
Well,
or now? Like what are at the end of where's the budget going? Let's just put it that way.
yeah.
Both
Well,
time and money, I want to
yeah,
say.
and those are both important, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the best things you can do don't cost money, but they do take substantial amount of time.
Sweat equity or check equity. It all comes down to those two things.
Yeah. So remind me to talk about Lead Simple and our follow-ups if I don't remember to do that, because I want to start
Okay.
talking with the website and share. This is the property management share some of the secret sauce for other managers. One of the things we started working on a couple of years ago to get ready for this market shift was it was expensive to try to compete. Sacramento's pretty good sized metropolitan area. Our greater area that we manage probably has 2 to 3 million people, depending on kind of where you draw that boundary. So it's a bigger market, and Sacramento property management is expensive to try to win in with regard to SEO or AdWords. But I figured out we could kind of be specialists in a lot of local areas that are still really good areas, but maybe no property managers were even in those areas. So we made landing pages for I think 14 or 18 of our relevant little local areas. And so when they had a landing page, so when you dropped on that, it would look like you were in their town. It had pictures that everybody that's local would recognize, iconic icons in those spots. And then we would list 10 or 15 properties that we have in that same zip code or area as recently rented. And then when you click on management services, it clicked you back into our regular homepage on our landing page. And so we started seeing that we were getting a lot of traffic from these little local ones, and it was costing us a whole lot less to be able to win in those markets. So instead of just trying to fight the tiger, there's some big property managers in Sacramento too, and it was hard to go head to head with them on the big Sacramento property management, but we could certainly win on the little local ones, and we've done very well with that.
This has been a strategy that's been around for a long time. I used to have a marketing agency and we did a local SEO. And yeah, exactly. It's like you could do
Yeah, but
Miami or you can do the 95 cities that make up Miami, right? And
it takes time, right? Somebody's got to go out, figure out the photos. They have to write some
yeah.
descriptions that have to do with the local areas. You have to have an investment of time to make those and then change them often enough that they stay relevant.
This is the embodiment of a concept that I talk about all the time, which is efficient versus effective. You got to
Mhm.
make the conversation because what's effective is not always efficient. And I think it's just too easy to optimize. Efficient would be Sacramento property management, right? And I don't
Right.
know all the cities, but then you may be way more effective with a little more work. And so, by the way, that's just a framework we use here all the time that I talk about with my business partners and friends and just always being like, okay, are like we optimizing for efficient or effective? And like
Right.
optimizing for efficient is a luxury that you get after you already started getting effective and you get to tamper down. But if you start with efficient from the beginning, sometimes you never get to effective, and then the whole thing was a waste.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we're doing more and more. So if you're looking at a model of where our lead sources come from, about 40% are repeat and referral, and about half the referrals are realtors. So we have a good relationship with the local realtors.
Yeah.
And part of the reason that's the case is because we've been here as local realtors for a long time. But that's a two-edged sword. I mean, I'm a Masters Club member, pretty high producing real estate salesperson, and so was my father. So realtors sometimes think if you sell real estate, you're going to steal our clients. You have to overcome that objection and really give a client solicitation uh, guarantee that's ironclad and that they trust and have a reputation in the market. So we've done that, but in doing this, we've gone ahead and tried to do a lot more education with realtors. So they have investors. They want to know the new laws for property management. California gives us a plethora of information to be sharing because we're constantly changing our laws. It's complicated. And so I often get up in front of the realtor groups and speak about new laws, best practices. This is probably the best way to handle this law because it's one thing to know the law. It's another thing to know what's the practice around that law that makes the most sense and does the best for your customers. So again, getting out there and sharing that information with realtors has helped us keep that generation of leads coming in from them. And then our own clients, so often you just have to remember to ask your clients for um, for leads and referrals. And a lot of times if you you figure it out, there's probably only about 10% of your clients that will actually refer. And if you can really figure out who those guys are and develop a real good way to thank them and show them their appreciation, they are the ones that are going to drive those lead sources. So we've really focused on you know we can't pay referral fees the same way with the realtor, but we take care of them in other ways and give them management, send them letters of appreciation and gratitude. All those things really help.
Yeah, it's amazing how everybody thinks it's only money that is gonna be what people need to be recognized for, but sometimes a thank you note and just a little extra service and a feeling of being special, a little white glove extra service, like goes a long way to your clients. So I love that.
So, and back to the thought of the website optimization. One of the other things that I did, and I did this a few years ago, um, I created a really pretty good quality video for each aspect of property management. So I think I have these. So I don't want to forget them, but everybody would know what they would be. But we had one for marketing your rental, one for tenant investigations, the way we do it, one for maintenance, one for inspections, one for how our accounting looks, how easy it is to read, one for new laws and how do you stay abreast of that in an ever-changing world of a legal climate, and then best practices for some of those. So those are our kind of on our landing page. So if a person, a lot of people are cagey, they don't want to talk to somebody, they don't want to get sold. So if you can give them the information where if they want to go down through there, they're all about 3 minutes. So literally in about 20 minutes, you can go through our landing page of our homepage and see all of them. But it gives people a pretty good idea. It's almost like they've had a presentation at that point. They understand pretty well how we work. So we've put that together. That has been really effective. When people started to call and say, "I watched your videos. I'd like to hire you," the lights kind of went on, and
Yeah.
oh, I don't have to go do the presentation. I don't have to spend an hour with them. That was. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens pretty regularly. So that was an important piece. And then we have used those same videos in our lead simple follow up. So when we have a lead, if they, most of them probably haven't sat down and watched through all the videos, but we send it to them a bite at a time, depending on if they're, an A, hot lead, or B, not so hot and not going to be moving for a while. We classify them, and our frequency is different. But we're sending them those with a little custom message and one link, one at a time. And what we found, I thought I had a pretty high close rate, but what I didn't realize was the people I did not get in front of, if they didn't, I had so much coming in for several years there that if they didn't schedule a presentation, I dropped it. I left it alone. But when we went and we started doing a drip campaign with Lead Simple and sending them these, people were coming back 6 and 8 months later and saying, "Okay, I'm ready to hire you." And there are people we wouldn't have done if we didn't set that up. So the follow-up was really important to us.
Fortune is in the follow-up, John. I mean, this alone, let's just pause on that for 1 second. When you have the volume that you have, this doesn't always work for somebody who's just getting 3 leads, a quarter. When you have the volume you have, having really good nurture and follow-up is the difference between, to me, it could be a 50% difference in growth,
Yeah.
because
Oh, I
people are
think even more.
busy. Yeah,
I think
people
it's
are
more than
busy.
that. My sister is a EXP agent, very successful in Oahu, and 7 or 8 years ago, she started doing Facebook ads in her local market for sale, and she just said, "Do you want to know what your home's worth?" And then, but her follow up from that was fantastic. And in 6 months, she had 1,600 people in her database, and she was closing a ton of business. And then she's done, Facebook kind of changed their rules, and so then she went on to other forums. But I see realtors all the time saying, what's the best lead source? Zillow leads suck, or Realtor.com leads suck. And I always want to say, no, your follow up sucks. The leads are probably pretty good, but if you don't do the right thing with those leads, then yeah, you're wasting your money even gathering them, because you've got to be able to follow up and do really well with them, kind of wow them.
I love that. It's not your leads don't suck, it's your follow-up. This is where we have like a lot of conversation of like, what's your conversion rate when we look in data? And then I like to have the conversation. I'm like, well, how are you defining conversion rate? Does that mean you get the lead on January 1st and by the 15th you've closed them? Your conversion rate's going to be X. If you're the kind of person that will get them on January 1st and you will continue to follow up and they will buy from you on August 1st,
Mhm.
like that's an entirely more sophisticated business, you know? But you
Yep.
need software and you need, automation and systems to do that. But it's definitely possible.
We started doing that about a year before we hired a business development manager. And I would have never gotten to this. This is something that when the real estate sales market slowed down, my wife is my sales partner. When it slowed down, she's the one who came in and said, let's figure this out and figure out how to follow up with all your leads. And I thought, okay, that'll be great. I didn't think it was going to make that much difference. But when we started signing people up 6 and 8 months later, after they'd only made one initial call and they wouldn't even schedule a presentation, then I realized, you know what, this is really effective. And why spend all that money to create, that you do to create leads if you're not going to optimize and do the very best you can with them?
I love that. This is almost like just a callback to what we talked about earlier, which is where people think I spend X on leads, I don't care how I get them. And then there's conversion and there's service. But like you're saying, the ecosystem of sales is just so much more complicated and integrated than that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's the same callback. It's like people just be like, I don't care where I get the leads. If I buy them, if somebody refers them, if I generate them, they're treating them all the same. And then they're like, then the sales process starts. And I'm like, no, the sales process already started and the marketing process, if you're doing it right, you know what I mean? And then
Right.
it's the remarketing process, the nurture process. It's just way more, I think, complicated and mature than most people think it is.
We're also directing all of our calls to a cell number that gets answered. I think this is so important. Answer the dang phone, and respond really quickly, because that's the first indicator someone has of how their business experience is going to be with you. So if even if you're really rushed in your property management business and you've got you're always running behind, figure out a way, if you really want to grow, figure out a way to prioritize answering those calls, quickly responding to emails as soon as they come in, and then doing it very well. And when you're doing them one at a time and you're taking time to write a response, that works if you have time. But if you have a pre-written something that you can just drop right in, that's really well done, and you use that consistently, uh, it just produces such a better result.
It's great. I'm really enjoying seeing you. What I've kind of come to understand is you're really good at working on the business of property management. And I think you do that because you feel like the craft of property management is handled pretty well. So you mentioned, I've got an office manager. We worked on that. There was a point in the past, like you said, you're like, I couldn't think about these things because I don't know, it's like a crying baby. You know what I mean? There's just like so much that's happening, so much that's going on. But it sounds like you got to a point where Tyner has the craft of property management done, and now you, as the owner, elevated into the business of property management. And everything I'm hearing you get excited about and talk about is not on just how do I reduce a maintenance request by 4 hours. You're saying, how do I make my clients have a better experience? How do I get out in the marketplace? How do I attract more people? So I kind of, in my mind, feel like you feel like your team's got the craft of property management down, and you're doing what is the work that you couldn't trust them to do, which is to work on the business of property management. Is that a kind of fair assessment of like your trajectory?
It is a fair assessment. And what we learned for example, the lead simple follow-up was that it gave us the opportunity to communicate a lot with leads. And I realized that we weren't doing that so well with our own customers. Every once in a while, I'd lose an account. And I said, we don't think we need you because everything goes so easy. And I realized, well, it's because I haven't been communicating to them why it's going so easy. So I started writing newsletters and blogs so that we could share with them on a bi-monthly basis. These are the new things that we're doing for you. And then automating our processes so that even we're doing the mundane things like a lease renewal or something else, the owner's getting notified of the process 3 or 4 times through that process. So communication, again, it's a lot easier to automate the whole process. So we've brought that kind of back into the operations side of our company too.
That's great. Okay, so let's transition on this because you shared a little bit with me. We met a year ago. I love the story you shared about, meeting Jen and saying, "Hey, I'm good. I got this all figured out." And she started prodding and saying, "Amazing, but do you still enjoy doing that?" And that is sometimes the question. I mean, sometimes you get to a privilege as a business owner where you say, okay, I got that problem solved, but maybe I shouldn't be doing that anymore. And that's the journey that I've been on as well,
Hmm.
like at different places. And I'm like, hey, we got that figured out here. And they're like, yeah, but can you teach somebody else how to do that? Is it systematized? Like, can someone else do that? And then I have to pause and I have to say, probably not. Like, that's
Yeah.
just the Jeremy show. So we met and you kind of came up and you were very energized. I remember meeting you, in Napa, and you said, "Okay, I think it's time, and I think you guys might be able to help me." But you had some issues with that. So do you mind walking us through kind of like what that was like for you to decide, "Okay, I gotta move past this on," and why did you pass it on? What was next for you?
Yeah. So, as you grow as a property manager, you have to grow as a CEO or a business owner too. And over the years, I got really good at bringing new business in and growth. Um, but and I was real careful with my time. I felt like if I was in front of a new client, that was a time. I actually calendar everything I do in my activities. I calendar my calendar in color codes. And if they're green, that means I'm in front of a client. It's a great activity. If they're yellow, I probably should be handing it to somebody else. And if it's red, it shouldn't be on my calendar. I used to change the light bulbs in the office, right? So I got rigorous about that. And that worked pretty good. It really helped me focus on getting in front of people. And I got good at that side and so good at it that I didn't want to hand that off. And the other thing is there's a little celebrity factor. When you're on the videos and then you show up at the door, like you came to my house, they're really impressed with that. So I wanted to figure out a way to be able to hand some of that off to our business development manager. So we've created some videos thanking them for the appointment. You're going to be meeting Brandy and introducing her to them, where I'm still involved in that, and so our follow up kind of has some of that together. So that she has some of that. She actually has to be better than I am in order to do the same close rate, because I have that factor of being the owner of the company and the one who's done that. So, but she's come in and her close rate is darn close to the same as mine, which is fantastic. But I came to realize that just because it's getting in front of a customer isn't really the best use of my time as a CEO of a company with 25 employees, and all. I should be figuring out new systems and developing and so creating. I mean, that's really what I'm doing now is creating a lot more time. So now my calendar, the green items are creation. They're when I'm writing blogs or when I'm recording videos and or meeting with realtor groups, and preparing for that. So I had to figure out what was the highest and best use of my time. And it shifted from being the business development manager from the company to being a leader in content and education. And, watching Mark Cunningham. So Mark Cunningham is one in Denver,
Yep.
right? He was doing that. And some of the things that I heard him say, I had already been leaning that way, but I realized I can't do those things if I continue to be the business development manager. I've got to let that go and come over to somebody else. So making that move was hard for me, because I was afraid that we'd undo or wreck what we had, but it was the best thing I could have possibly done. It allows me to be a much better leader of the company.
Amazing. But it wasn't easy for you, right? I mean, you kind of shared there's a celebrity factor. You do it. What did you need to know? What what made you trust that you could actually hire somebody else? Like, what were you looking for when you hired that person? I don't want to turn this into a rent scale pitch because I know you said earlier, you're like, well, I thought you guys could do it. But what did you need to see? Like, what was gonna make you comfortable? They're like, okay, this person is actually gonna be able to represent our brand.
Sure. Well, listening to your your talk at the NARPM convention in Napa really kind of helped me push. It said the things that I needed to hear in order to kind of get me to that place. And then we went ahead and hired you. And it's kind of interesting because the one we ended up hiring was somebody who had already applied for the job and was high on my list. But going through your process with the videos, we had, I think, 96 people created videos for us, and we interviewed six of them. And Brandy, that we ended up hiring, was one of them. And she's been consistently on your leaderboard, closing 25 to 35 a month or something, way up there. And I want to say to be on your leaderboard when you're signing them up one at a time versus taking multifamily, it's a little harder. So, when you get somebody who spikes at 56 accounts for the month, but they signed up a 30-unit apartment complex, I kind of want to call foul for that. But Brandy's done really, really, really well with it. And that hiring process helped us know. And then Jennifer having the insight and the wisdom to say, I think in your business model, after she listened to us for a little bit, we probably need to hire someone that reflects you a little bit better. And I think that's part of what the whole success was for us, was to actually have that fit that we talked about earlier, where it kind of matches.
Yeah, we've seen that. It's amazing. Yeah, Jen definitely saw that and saw what you needed. I think she got to know your culture and your style, which is amazing. We can't always get that right the first time. That's a big thing. So luck is always involved, but it does sound like you got somebody
Well, it
amazing.
was good, and she scared me a lot because she talked about the personality type of the salespeople you're looking for, and I think generally speaking, it's right on. But part of that personality trait is the burnout rate, or they change jobs regularly because they're antsy, and they tend to move on. So I didn't want to go through all the effort of training somebody, and you do a lot of the training, but she still went on 30 presentations with me, talked a lot about them on the way and back, for overlapping for a couple months. And it's a lot of effort to put into somebody. You've made a big investment. You want it to work. But yeah, she says at this point, she says that if she's ever leaving here, they're gonna have to drag her kicking and screaming out the door. So it's a really good fit, and she's just another family member for us now.
I love it. Can you just high level explain how you experience Brandy, personality traits, for somebody watching this that may be in your position? I think this is a real great experience share for somebody else. So, how would you, if like, I don't want to abstract Brandy into some traits, but if for whatever reason Brandy won the lottery tomorrow and she said, I'm moving on, how would you
Mhm.
describe her and what you'd be looking for in the next person?
She's smart. She listens carefully. She answers things articulately. She's a good orator, good talker. I'm not, but she's very good at that side, and I think that's really important for her. And she's also one who does deep dives into the information. So being able to answer things credibly, and that's part of what I have as the one doing the presentations. I knew how to answer all the questions someone would bring to me. Well, Brandy wanted to be just like that. She didn't want to just be able to do the overview, get them on contract, and let the property manager tell them that. She wanted to be credible. So when they asked questions, she could give them really solid answers that would make them feel safe and assured that we knew what we were doing. And I really wanted that in a business development manager. I didn't just want a salesperson. I wanted somebody who would immerse themselves in the property management systems enough to be able to answer those questions intelligently and handle the questions well. And so I would be looking for that same trait in another person. I think that's what fits best with our model.
So our three C's that we use in hiring is coachable, committed, and caring. And
Mhm.
it sounds like Brandy indexes super high on the caring, which is great.
Yes, she
Yeah,
does.
that's great. And she's very committed. Like you said, they'd have to drag her out of there. And
Yeah,
my team says she's coachable. So you got the three C's. So
yeah.
it doesn't sound that different from our average model overall. It's just that she blended in with your cultural values. And that's a testament to you. Less of Renscale, more of Tyner having a strong culture and being able to like attract in somebody that fits with that, which I think is great.
Well, and she's also not so money oriented that she wants to bring every account in. She understands what we're looking for, and she is real quick to say no if it's in the wrong area. The owner has the wrong mentality. The property's not going to be brought up to a standard that we can attract good tenants. She's she has no problem walking away from that. And I think sometimes there's a conflict between what the business wants and what the business development manager wants. They want a paycheck that's as maximized as can be, and so having a personality trait that will make a person still be a team player while they're in that role was important to us.
That's great. All right, so I heard some things that I really like. Just the evolution of where you're going is amazing. I'm going to share a couple quotes or ideas that I've heard that I feel like you're on the journey of, but I want your feedback on. So, the first management guru ever was Peter Drucker, and he said real business growth comes from two things. It's marketing and innovation, and that's really the only differentiation you have. That's where you should be focused on. And then I got a library downstairs full of books, and I'm a big reader of Dan Kennedy. I'm not sure if you know him. I know he's actually a great direct marketer, and he basically says. You spend every day in the beginning of a business getting yourself out of the day to day so that you can spend more time on marketing. And because that's the highest leverage point of a business owner. And
I
so no
like
matter
that.
what your skill set is, you should be basically, creating systems and hiring great people to take care of everything so that you can basically focus on marketing. And that's what I'm kind of watching you do. That's kind of
Hmm.
like the takeaway from this. Would you agree with that? Is that like really where
Absolutely.
you're
I
at?
absolutely agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Get yourself out of the, I always said, you can't be working in your company and work on your company. I didn't realize that I had kind of done that as a BDM for my company instead of a leader for the company. So this has allowed me to really focus on the creative things, and that's what I should have been doing.
Well, you had done a lot before we met you, and I just keep hearing great things about what you've been doing since we met you, which is amazing. I just want to say I really appreciate the collaboration. What's next for you? What are you going to do with all of this compound interest that you've accrued?
Well, we want to actually ramp up the growth rate. So we've only had Brandy 7 months, our business development manager, and she has kept the consistent sign up rate about the same as what I was doing. But in that time, we've cut our advertising budget significantly, and I want to continue to do that. And then my goal is to ramp up the new growth. So we got Brandy a full-time assistant, a helper that is actually helping her do all the execution behind the scenes. So she's actually able to be in front of clients more often. So I'm thinking that we should be able to take our sign up rate from 250 last year to 350 or more this year. So my most immediate goal is to probably get to 1,500 accounts by the end of the year and to do it more profitably. So we're also edging our management fees up to kind of see where's the top of that where we can still sign up. So we're working on that. It's bringing them in more profitably at the same time we're growing. And so that would be the goal, is get to 1,500 and be more profitable in the process of doing those new accounts also.
Things speed up when you get them dialed in, which is exciting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I one well one thing I really want to focus on before we cut this off, because I think it was great. You said it way earlier. I made a note. And it's something that we're focusing on a lot that's newer for our community. And that's just, how many of your current clients are creating referrals for you or repeat business? Now, I know you said you get a lot of referrals from realtors, but if we take them out, you got 1,200 plus doors. That probably accounts to around 900 to 1,000 individual owners, I'm guessing. Um,
Right.
if you had to spitball, and I won't hold you to this, although this is recorded, if you had to spitball, how many of your, like, what percentage of your clients, is it like 10%, 5%, 20%, either
Well,
come back to
well,
buy another door or send you a referral?
yeah. So client referrals, separate from real estate referrals, are about 20% of our growth. So we're talking about 50 leads from our own clients. So just 50 out of 1,000, it's only 5%. And a lot of those are repeat people. They're the people that
Yeah,
are your living billboards, and they're out there doing it over and over. So I think really 2 to 4% probably is the number of our clients that are actually referring to us on a regular basis.
that's
And
amazing.
when
Okay.
you know them, you know who they are, and you
Yeah.
can really start to honor them. That goes a long ways. I mean, you've got another employee working for you.
That's why I asked, we're starting to see that that's something that is an overlooked opportunity, and I think you're doing it well. So that's why I just wanted to
Mhm.
check that math
It's
with you.
actually a smaller number than I would have guessed. When you think
Yeah,
20%, but then you start breaking it down, I can kind of do it in my head because I know where these come
yeah.
from. It's not that many people that are actually sending them over.
All right, so maybe our next conversation will be like, how do we unharness that market you already have to get that number up to like 5 to 10%? Because that could really speed things up
Yeah,
too.
yeah, it would.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds like a good challenge.
I like it. John, thanks so much. Love
Thank
watching
you.
your journey. And you made a side comment that Brandy is super articulate and good with her words. You just communicated so much about business so well. So I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. Have a great day.